Hey everybody, this is Chewy Plays Nintendo, and it's time to talk about the Nintendon't Switch. Nintendo has finally announced the Nintendo Switch Lite, their dedicated handheld system featuring 4 colorful models and most of the Switch's game library. That's right, this new piece of equipment is intended to be played in handheld mode only, and it doesn't switch from handheld mode to your TV. So I am naturally going to refuse to call this a Switch because it doesn't switch. So I'll just refer to it as the Nintendon't Switch. This device was priced at $199.99 in US currency, and it provides a lower price point for the Switch. So what are my thoughts on this console? So I guess the first thing I want to focus on is that price point of $200. So in the US, the Switch does cost $300, and that's just the base version that comes with, everything you're used to. Joy-Cons, dock, the whole shebang, as you can say. But I think this price point is a bit misleading because, to be fair, I think this console is kind of a great option for anybody who plans on playing in handheld mode and never really sharing the joy, or maybe they have a second console already. Maybe they have the original Switch. I think this works well as a second console at a lower price point, but here's why I think the price is misleading. If you are buying this as your only Switch console, the value is lost as soon as you want to buy Joy-Con. For one, Joy-Con are $80 on their own. You can find sales here and there, but already taking that $200 price point to $280 by adding Joy-Con, for $20 more, you can get the full Switch experience that has all of those features and everything. On top of that, the Joy-Con, at least the controllers on the Switch Lite, which I'm already calling it that, even though it's the Nintendon't Switch, the controllers do not remove. It does not have detachable Joy-Cons. Instead, you're gonna have to buy separate Joy-Cons, and because you can't detach any controllers, there's no way to plug the Joy-Con controllers to your Switch and have them charged like that. No, you have to add the charging dock, which is another $20, or if you want something a little bit fancier, you can get the charging grip, which is $30. So depending on what you want as your option, you're looking at $100 to $110 for an additional accessory that already comes packed in. So when you take a look at the Switch at that point, at least having the regular Switch, which is at $300, or you get the Nintendon't Switch at $200 and then add $100 with the Joy-Con, you're looking at a price point of $300 on both of those. Meanwhile, one of them just doesn't have the option to switch, which I guess for me personally, I think that's the main selling point for me, especially looking back at Nintendo's marketing for the Switch. It looks like they really relied on the fact that it can be played on the go and it can be played on your TV. That Switch feature was the main selling point for them on the original model. On top of that, they really pushed sharing the joy, and that just involved being able to detach your Joy-Cons and play 2-player games right out of the box. So that's one thing that's lost with this Switch. Not only do you not get to switch from TV mode to handheld mode, you do lose that ability to quickly play a 2-player game. Of course, this could all just not be an issue because, if you play online mostly, you can already play with people that way. So say you don't have anybody around you to play. That's fine. I think this is a good option. If you don't plan on sharing this console and you find that you yourself pretty much plays in handheld most of the time regardless, and you don't really use the Switch on the TV, then I think it's a great purchase. I think it's definitely a great price point because it skips all of the stuff that you don't care about, essentially. So I think that's fine. I think this console is a good option for people who already have a Switch as well, because one thing, I already have a Switch, I already have Joy-Con, I have 2 sets of Joy-Con even. So I don't really have to, I can connect another set of controllers to this Switch and it's totally fine. Because I already have those accessories. So I think as a second Switch, it works really well as well. And this can be the case with depending on the household. Like mine, for example, I only have one TV in my house. We don't have a second TV. We have laptops and things that we'll use to watch different things on. But for the most part, we have one TV. It's in the living room. And there's really not much of a need for us to have our own separate TVs or, like even a second Switch for that matter. But say we do want a second Switch. The handheld one it would make more sense to get that one in this situation because we don't have a second TV for a dock anyways. So one person can play on the TV, the other can play on their handheld device. I'd say this also reminds me, the other thing that kind of bothered me about this is it doesn't have a kickstand, and to some extent it doesn't need one because the Switch's kickstand is already not the greatest thing to begin with, so I think it doesn't really need a kickstand, but it does kind of limit your options in some cases. Like if you do end up buying a Joy-Con controller and you play sharing the joy, as they say, you're gonna have to find some way to prop the Switch up and, at a comfortable eye level for both players, because I think it's just not very fun with somebody like holding a Switch and then you trying to play off of that at the same time. Like there's some movement, there's going to be a bad angle that you hit, and they can always just turn away and be like, oh no, I'm winning now. So I don't know, the gameplay just isn't fair in that sense. So I would say having some sort of stand is good. Now, this said, there is a charging stand which has a lot more angles and is a lot just more user-friendly than the regular just Switch kind of kickstand that comes built in. So there are options around that, but once again, I want to stress that this is going to add to the price, and it really, if you're trying to save money, if your goal is to save money by buying this Switch, then I think the best way to save money is to literally not want to share the joy. For example, Joy-Con cannot be in your equation because that already takes the price up to an equal point where you might as well have bought the other Switch model. And even comparing, if you go to store.nintendo.com right now, you can actually go and look through refurbished Switches and find one for $260. Like a refurbished Switch with all the same features, all the original design essentially, you can buy that right now for $260. So $60, that's the price of a game essentially. If you are just going out, you get your Switch, your Don't Switch, for example, and you buy Zelda, that's $260 right there, versus you could have the full featured Switch at that point. So what I'm trying to say here is if you are trying to save money, I recommend this is a Switch that you don't plan on having Joy-Con. And I guess in my situation, I live kind of far away from my family, from my friends and everything. I don't really have a lot of people to play couch co-op with, for example. So I do spend a majority of my time playing online. I guess for me, if this were the situation, if I was trying to save money and I didn't already have a Switch, I would think that is a good option. But that said, I still do travel and see my family a lot, and I'll bring my Switch and I'll bring all my controllers and everything, and I can just pop in Mario Kart and we can all play really quickly and easily because I already have all of the Joy-Con and everything. I have a Pro Controller too. And I do have a question about this. There's no really mention if you can connect a Pro Controller to this console, so I am wondering about that. I haven't looked in depth through the FAQ, but I will like to look at that. So I guess I want to conclude by talking about the drawbacks and the pros for this console and my general thoughts on all of that. So I'd say for me, I think one of the big drawbacks is that you can't really capture footage. I'm making these videos on YouTube, and I like to get a lot of my own footage, so I even had my 3DS modded, and so I can get footage from that. The Switch is already compatible with a TV, and if something's compatible with a TV and can use an HDMI cable, I can capture footage with it using my setup, which is the Elgato HD60. That's what I have. That connects to the Switch, that lets me get some gameplay footage, and since this doesn't really have a way to connect to a TV, I'm kind of doubting that there's going to be an option to capture footage, unless you go, I don't know, get it modded in some way to allow that. I don't see that being an option. So if you do want a Switch and want to eventually capture footage, this might not be the option. It's gonna be a little bit more expensive to do so, but it's important to know that you will need to get a Switch that will allow you to do that. The other thing is, I want to say this again. I have to stress this. The biggest thing for me with the Switch is I love that it is a hybrid console. I truly enjoy playing games on the TV, and I truly enjoy playing games in handheld mode. I love both experiences, so for me, this is the perfect console. It's been, since the moment I saw the first trailer for the Switch, I knew this was the console I've always wanted because, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I travel a lot, I take my Switch with me, and it's great that I can keep playing all of the same games. I used to just take my 3DS, and now I don't even take my 3DS anymore. I just take my Switch. So it's reduced to the amount of things I travel with, which is great, and I get to play all of the same games. And even when I go to another place, I'll still connect to the TV there because it's so easy. It's like 2 wires that go in, and so I don't know. For me, I love the setup of the Switch. I love the hybrid nature, and so that to me is a drawback for it. I think if it would have been able to switch, I would have been much more interested in this. The other thing is that it won't be an optimized solution for some games. Some of you may know that I used to play Splatoon 2 competitively. I still play a lot of Splatoon 2, not competitively anymore. I'm not on a team or anything, but I refuse to play that game in some conditions. For example, I will not play that game in handheld mode. That's just not the way I play it. I always play it specifically in docked mode on my TV, wired in. I need to have a wired connection for that game. I can't deal with the disconnects and the lag and everything. So I've got a specific setup to play that game, and I have to play with a Pro Controller. I remember the weekend Splatoon 2 was doing its test fire. I played it with the Joy-Con, and I knew immediately that I needed to go out and get a Pro Controller. So as soon as I found one, I bought one. So there are games like that I just feel don't benefit from playing in handheld mode. I think the best experience is on the TV. So those were my drawbacks for this. I do want to talk about the pros, however. The pros is that it is cheap. I mean, like I said, if you are in that scenario, in that case where you only play on your own and you don't really need to connect to the TV, $200 is so cheap to get access to a huge library of games. So, and I say huge because it's growing. Animal Crossing comes out next year, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun. There's so many things on the way this year. There's Fire Emblem coming, Luigi's Mansion 3, and there's already some of the best Zelda and Mario games that we've ever played. So it has a great library that is compatible in handheld mode. So $200, that's not a lot to pay for a device that's just so fun. The other thing I really like is the colors. I've seen some back and forth on this, but overall, I think that turquoise color is great. I think the yellow color looks phenomenal. The gray is probably my least favorite of them, but I don't think it's too bad. But regardless, I do really enjoy the fun colors, and I personally hope they bring some Joy-Con in those colors. We kind of have a yellow one through the Pikachu and Eevee edition. I didn't get that though, because I can't get that. It's too much money. But I would love some turquoise Joy-Con now. I technically have mine custom. I have some see-through blue Joy-Con, but the turquoise, it looks good. It's a fun color. The other things that I think are great are it is more compact, it is more portable, and it has a better battery life. I think those things are pretty appealing because I have had to have my Switch repaired. The fan, it kind of got busted. It was just kind of a faultier fan than other Switch consoles, so I got that replaced. It works perfectly fine now, and that's good, all good and done. But I think this design does look like it's more sturdy, more portable, and more able to take that kind of rough and tumble lifestyle. If you're like me, I travel and I go on airplane trips a lot, so I take my Switch around and it bumps around a little bit, and I just have to trust that it's going to be okay in the very thick Breath of the Wild Sheikah Slate case that I keep it in. So it's been pretty good so far. The only thing that happened, like I said, was the fan, and I don't think that was due to traveling at all. I think that was literally just due to, some Switches weren't made as well as others, and I just happened to get a faulty one. And then the final thing I do want to say as a pro is the D-pad. It is so nice to see the D-pad make a return. Like, I'm not against the button controls of the Joy-Con. In fact, I think I'm 100% okay with them because I played my 3DS for a long time. I think the buttons are comparable on the 3DS, especially the new 3DS XL, which is my main 3DS console, my only one right now. I think the buttons are comparable to that, so I've always been used to the size. I do appreciate having like a little bit more of a joystick versus the circle pad, but having the D-pad, I think I have the Pro Controller, and I'd say the one thing that's really disappointing about the Pro Controller is the D-pad, and so I just don't feel like I have a real D-pad controller to really play some games that would benefit from that type of control. So I think overall the D-pad is a great addition. I think it's really nice to have that. So yeah, overall, I think this Switch it's a good option for some people. For me, I just have a hard time justifying the cost if you do want to experience the Switch in the way I guess it was originally marketed, which was to be able to switch from handheld to TV and to be able to share the joy. Those two things are completely missing here, unless you're willing to pay the extra cost, which at that point, if you are, I'd say get the bigger Switch. But in those other scenarios where you don't really need those features, then I think it's a great option. Like I said, the colors are fun. There's going to be a Pokemon themed one, and who knows if there's an Animal Crossing themed one, but I am gonna have a video on Friday specifically discussing how I feel about this model in terms of Animal Crossing. So be on the lookout for that Friday, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Nintendon't Switch. To be specific, the Nintendo Switch Lite, for those of you if you're confused, but let me know what you think about this console. Are you getting it? Are you interested? Do you think this is a waste of money? Let me know what your thoughts are, and be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye!